Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 78 of the Clutch Dump. I was in the middle of chewing when Ben started this, so we are just going to book it through this intro.
You could have waited. I edit all the episodes. You could have waited.
Nah, I'm eating these sea salt and lime tortilla chips, and they're delicious. So, now that I'm done, welcome.
20 years of trying, 20 years.
And Senna sprints away.
Down the straight, Rossi's right in behind Lorenzo.
The 101st Indianapolis 500 is won by Takuma Sato. Dale Earnhardt will come to the caution flag to win the Daytona 500.
If you have not already, make sure to follow us on social media, on Instagram, at The Clutch Dump, and then follow us on YouTube. Hello, if you're watching. At The Clutch Dump Pod. Make sure to turn on that notification bell, like the video, and subscribe. And then make sure to check us out on all podcasting platforms or just your favorite. Honestly, it's kind of up to you. That's the wonder of having options. We are on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Pandora. If you still use that or you work at a small business and it plays on your radio. However, we are in any corner of the internet for your listening pleasure. Ben, how are you?
I'm doing swell, actually. I had a rather good day. For a Wednesday, I can't complain. Mr. Patty, yourself?
I'm not gonna lie, I've actually been really excited for this episode because there's a lot of kind of cool things to talk about. So
there's some bits.
I'm excited to jump into it. Speaking of jumping into it, Ben, do you want to divide up the news? Do you want me to run through it? What do you think?
I figured one of us would just go through it and we would just chime in when necessary. So,
after you,
perfect. I'll go ahead since you're stuffing your face with chips. And we're going to start off with kind of some sad news, sadly, because for the first time since 1997, Texas Motor Speedway is not on the calendar for next year's IndyCar season. So Texas Motor Speedway came onto the calendar in 1997, and for the first time since then, it is not on the calendar for next year.
So what's funny is I got into a Twitter beef because people in the NASCAR Twitter were complaining about Texas Motor Speedway, and I was like, guys, it provides some good NASCAR races. I was like, granted, no track. It has all good races. I was like,
true.
The IndyCar races there are sensational. Literally the next day, a guy just replies to me with the new IndyCar schedule.
The new IndyCar calendar. It's not there.
Okay, the point still remains.
It's not the point. Yeah, so that kind of sucks. I mean, it sucks because, like, I guess it does. I've never been to an IndyCar race there. I've only been to a NASCAR race there.
Same.
So I don't know. The race could be crap. I have no idea. But
we watched it this year, didn't we? The IndyCar race, we did an episode on it.
Oh, we did an episode on it, but I didn't watch it.
Oh, it was a really good race.
Yeah, so I don't know. Sucks. Not on IndyCar calendar for next year. Australian Supercars has secured short-term Newcastle 500 future through 1-year contract extension, so congratulations to them. We do have an abundance of Formula One news, not related.
It's all to adjacent.
Not related.
Formula One.
Right, it's Formula One adjacent. It's not. It doesn't have to do with Formula One at the current moment in time. So probably one of the coolest things, Jessica Hawkins drove the AMR21 at the Hungaro Ring and supposedly set times comparable to Lance Stroll's in the AMR21.
Which, you know what's hilarious about that is she was on, I think she was on medium tires and it was a green track. So,
oof.
Like, oof. Yeah.
Well done to her. I think first female in a Formula One car since 2018?
Susie Wolf in 2018, yeah, in the Williams.
Yeah, I think it was 2018.
I commented on LinkedIn. I was like, have her replace Lance Stroll. Aston Martin does all of the excess marketing because you have the first female Formula One driver in forever.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
She'll sell more merch than Lance will. And then when Fernando retires, he can train her and help her learn car development and stuff like that he has experienced. Bam, there's a franchise driver.
Ta-da! Lawrence, you're welcome.
Aston Martin, you can hire me for consulting.
Exactly. Nick, I'm going to pronounce this name wrong, so I'm going to let you hit this one.
Oh, Ryo Hirakawa.
Thank you.
Yes.
I got the Hirakawa part, but joins McLaren F1 team as reserve driver. Andretti Global has officially moved into the final stages of becoming an F1 team. We did cover this a while ago when they put in their bid to become an F1 team.
Yeah.
Back when it was just Andretti Motorsport or whatever it was. But now it's Andretti Global, so Andretti and Cadillac are in the final stages of becoming an F1 team. Another potential team got close. Potential new F1 team, Lucky Sons, I think is technically how it's pronounced. I don't know.
I was in my head pronouncing it Leaky Sons.
I think it's Lucky Sons technically. Whatever it is, it's a dumb name. Has announced they have funding of $1 billion and are ready to pay a $600 million anti-dilution fee to join Formula One in 2026 and onwards. The FIA rejected their bid to join the sport, I think 3 days ago now. So the only team, there were 4 potential teams that put in a bid to join Formula One, and the only one left currently is Andretti Global. I think it's one of those things of Formula One really wants a new team, and I think the FIA is also on board for a new team. It's just the current teams that don't want a new team, which makes sense. Right. So that's so technically, according to the rule book, to become a Formula One team, you have to get all the signatures or whatever, and then you have to pay $200 million to the FIA. And basically what that does is, because no matter your finishing order, whether it's first or last in the Constructors' Championship, you get prize money. And the difference is, if you add a team and it's the same total amount of money, it just gets split up differently. It just gets, proportionally smaller. That's going to affect the teams that finish lower substantially more. So like Williams, who's currently 7th in the championship, that would hurt them a ton. Because it's kind of impressive for a Williams these days to be 7th in the championship. So if they get even less prize money, that's going to hurt them because they developed the car and have, no offense, a good driver. If they're 7th in the championship, if they get more prize money, they can put more development into the car. Next year, they can do even better, supposedly. So it's $200 million according to the current regulations. However, the Formula One teams have all agreed no new Formula One team unless they pay $600 million, 3 times the required amount.
Also, I think you misspoke earlier. Williams has a good Formula One driver and then Alex Albon.
Sorry. But so F1 teams are demanding $600 million. So apparently Lucky Sons has the $600 million. Andretti Global and Cadillac, I'm assuming, have $600 million lying around because it's Andretti and Cadillac. Somewhere in there, GM has $600 million that they could spend on a Formula One team.
Well, considering they're not paying employees now, you might as well.
Exactly. So they've got money. We will keep you updated on that, but at the current moment in time, it looks like Andretti Global is the only potentially new Formula One team. I think it would do wonders for the sport. I think it would do wonders for the American Formula One fandom of Formula One, as if we weren't already the biggest followers of the sport. I think we are. That's because of you, Netflix. But we'll keep you posted on that one. And some more recent adjacent Formula One news: Nick DeVries signs a contract to race for Mahindra Racing in Formula E. If you are unfamiliar with the racing history of Nick DeVries, he actually won the Formula E championship after Formula 2 when he didn't get a Formula 1 seat, and then he got a Formula 1 seat, and then he sucked, and now he's back to Formula E and is going to Harvard, I think is what I saw.
Yeah, at the same time.
Yeah, so congratulations to you, Nick DeVries, on your contract with Mahindra. Nick, we have some NASCAR news. I'll let you take that one because you're a resident NASCAR news.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, shake and bake. There's a tiger and panther in the car, whatever the hell. So Stewart-Haas Racing has done the coolest marketing stunt in all of NASCAR in a long time. I will just say this. They have outdone themselves. So Stewart-Haas Racing revealed their 2 new liveries with 2 new sponsors, with Old Spice and Wonder Bread. And guys, they are doing Ricky Bobby and Cal Naughton's liveries from Talladega Nights for the Talladega race. It is just perfection. It is just minty, fresh perfection, and I am in love with it. I'm going to buy merchendise. Last weekend, Hendrick Motorsports achieved 300 wins for the team. I'm going to say this wrong, but Raja Karuth joins Hendrick Motorsports in the number 17 Xfinity car for Phoenix. And I don't remember which. Oh, Charlotte. Boris Said is running one last NASCAR race in the same car at the Charlotte Roval.
Cool.
Boris Said, God love him, in his 60s, a head of hair that is legendary, and he's a tall son of a gun. I don't want. Boris Said is a national treasure. He's one of those American drivers he didn't win Le Mans. I don't know if he won Daytona. Didn't win the Indy 500. But man, that son of a gun was always right there, and everybody loves him. Nobody complains about Boris Said. He's just such a lovable guy, so that's going to be cool. And then Ryan Preece confirmed a contract extension with SHR and the 41 team through 2024. Moving on to World Endurance Championship. This is heavily rumored, and it's been confirmed that one of these drivers is actively talking with Jota.
Heavily rumored.
Well, and it's actually been confirmed that
Yes.
somebody, Seabass, was talking to the team. It is heavily rumored that Robert Kubica, Jenson Button, and Sebastian Vettel will be all in one Porsche 963 for Jota next year. Let me just tell you,
I'm buying merch immediately.
If that happens, Penske Motorsport can go kick a rock. Like,
Dude.
yeah, that would be incredible. It's been confirmed Mick Schumacher is talking to Alpine for a World Endurance Championship ride. Honda Performance Development becomes Honda Racing Corporation US. And there is heavy speculation that they're considering a full season of World Endurance with the Acura. And Stoffel Vandoorne has been confirmed to be running for Peugeot in 2024 with World Endurance. Moving on to DTM, Rene Rast achieved a record-breaking 26th DTM pole, and Thomas Preining now leads the DTM championship for Manthey Racing. Moving on to our race stuff, Ben.
Yes.
Where would you like to start?
Oh, I'm going to start with whatever you want, Nick. I'm assuming you would touch on NASCAR or SRO or both.
Yeah, let's do NASCAR.
All right.
So, also I got my Garage 56 shirt finally that I ordered, so
Congrats.
that's cool. All right. NASCAR this weekend. I'm done eating, I promise. Was the Auto Trader Echo Park 400 at Texas Motor Speedway. I'm just going to give you your top 10, and then I'll give you your championship standings, your playoff standings. In 10th is Chase Briscoe. 9th, Ricky Stenhouse. 8th, Daniel Suarez. 7th, Brad Keselowski. 6th, Kevin Harvick. 5th, Denny Hamlin. 4th, Christopher Bell. 3rd, Bubba Wallace. 2nd, Ross Chastain. At first place, William Byron, boy. It is interesting to note because that was the 300th victory for Hendrick. It is tied for the record in one season with 6 victories. And I believe he tied Jeff Gordon. So, interesting because the number 24 car is just dominating. Moving on to your playoff standings, for those of you that are fans of the NASCAR playoffs, we have in the round of 12, we have 4 drivers currently below the cut line. Those drivers are Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, and Kyle Busch. So those drivers are below the cut. Theoretically, if you're below the cut after Charlotte, which is October 9th, you're eliminated. And then it moves on to the round of 8. Currently in the top 8 is Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, Ross Chastain, Martin Truex, Christopher Bell, Chris Buescher, Denny Hamlin, and now William Byron has clinched his spot in the round of 8 with a race win. So stay tuned to that. Also, interesting to note, Kyle Busch sold Kyle Busch Motorsports today to Spire Motorsport.
Yes.
So they had 100.
Or it was announced today.
Right, fair enough. So that's NASCAR. Let me hop into some SRO real quick.
Please.
Because SRO was racing at Sebring, and there's a bit of drama with penalties and stuff.
Ooh, that was probably a good race.
There was a did not start. It was a Mercedes. In 20th, we had Thomas Collingwood in a Porsche. In GT4, we had Ross Choist in Aston GT4. Then we had Nicholas Shanny in a Toyota GT4. Mirko Schultes in a Corvette C7 GT3R in 17th.
Sick.
In 16th, Scott Blind with a Aston Martin GT4. 15th, Tim Savage in an Aston Martin GT4. 14th is Gray Newell in an Aston Martin GT4. 13th is the Black Dog Speed Shop car of Tony Gaples with the Camaro
Good name.
GT4. In 11th is Rob Holland in a Porsche GT4. 10th is the Flying Lizard Aston Martin GT4 of Jason Bell. In 9th is Andy Wilzock in a Flying Lizard 911 GT3R. We had Alex Vogel in the OnlyFans GT3R. In 7th is Johnny O'Connell in the Audi R8 LMS. In 6th, we had Todd Treffert in the Mercedes-AMG GT3. In 5th, we had Anthony Bartone in a Mercedes-AMG. In 4th, we had George Kurtz in the CrowdStrike AMG. 3rd place, Adam Adelson in the Wright Motorsports GT3R. In 2nd, Jason Daskalos in a CRP Racing Mercedes-AMG. And then in 1st place, Memo Gidley in the Mercedes-AMG GT3. Moving on to race 2 at Sebring. Loading.
Maybe.
We 2 just did not start. The first being Elias Sabo in an Aston Martin GT4 car from Flying Lizard, and then the Corvette C7R did not start. But moving up the order, in 18th, we had Nicholas Shanny in that Toyota. 17th, Thomas Collingwood in the Porsche. 16th, Ross Schost in the Aston GT4. 15th, Scott Blind in an Aston GT4. 14th, Gray Newell in an Aston GT4. 13th, Tim Savage in an Aston GT4. Then 12th was Rob Holland in a Porsche. 11th, Jason Bell in an Aston GT4. 10th was Gaples in the Camaro GT4. 9th was Alex Vogel in the 911 GT3R. 8th was another 911 GT3R, but this time from Flying Lizard. We had Anthony Bartone in the Real Time Racing Mercedes-AMG GT3. Todd Treffert in 6th in the Mercedes-AMG. 5th place is Adam Adelson in the Wright Motorsports 911 GT3R. 4th place is George Kurtz in the CrowdStrike AMG GT3. 3rd place on the podium is Johnny O in the Audi R8. 2nd place, Memo Gidley in the AMG. And then 1st place was Jason Daskalos in the Mercedes AMG car. The next round is Indianapolis, and that is the 8 hours of Indy for SRO GT America. Cool.
Mr. Patty, quick important question.
Quick important answer, hopefully.
Has Flying Lizard ever made a bad livery?
Not bad, but I will say their current one is probably the least good.
Okay, so I didn't watch the race, but I know that there's 2 Astons in Flying Lizard liveries. Was there the grayish black one with the Flying Lizard on it? Okay, there's 2. There's one that's black with the Flying Lizard logo in silver on the side, which looks pretty good. And then the other one is sponsored by 511, and it's an all tan car with orange accents on the wings, which looks pretty cool. I mean, nothing's better than the 997, but it looks rad.
What can you do?
What can you do?
Let's do Superbike and MotoAmerica.
Let's do Superbike and MotoAmerica, and we have a bunch to go through for both of these, so I'm probably only going to run through your top 10 from all of these, because we'll be here a while otherwise.
We have MotoGP and Formula 1 to do.
Because we have an abundance to talk about. So race 1 of World Superbike at Aragon, one of my favorite tracks of all time. Iker Lecuona was in 10th, Axel Bassani 9th, George Gerloff in 8th, Remy Gardner was in 7th, Patrick Oidel was in 6th, Danilo Petruzzi was in 5th, Andrea Locatelli finished 4th, Jonathan Ray 3rd, Toprak Razgatlioglu, I got it wrong, in 2nd, and then Michael Ruben Rinaldi in 1st. Alvaro Batista did DNF in race 1.
Shame.
Moving on to your Super Pole race, which is not race 2, even though it's the second race of the weekend. It's basically a sprint race in the middle that determines the order of race 2 for those of you who don't follow World Superbike. Your top 10, Remy Gardner in 10th, Garrett Gerolf in 9th, Patrick Oitel in 8th, Xavi Vierge in 7th, Iker Lecuona in 6th, Michael Ruben Rinaldi was down in 5th this time, Andrea Locatelli made it up to 4th, Toprak Razgatlioglu once again on the podium, but this time in 3rd, Jonathan Ray in 2nd, and Alvaro Batista back on the top step of the podium as he continues his championship charge. Moving on to your final race of the weekend, race 2, which is actually race 3. Your top 10, Garrett Gerolf, Remy Gardner, Xavi Vierge, Patrick Oidel, Iker Lecuona in 6th, Axel Bassani 5th, Jonathan Ray off the podium in 4th, Michael Ruben Rinaldi in 3rd for the Aruba.
Fire him. Get rid of him. He's washed.
Michael Ruben Rinaldi in 3rd on the Aruba IT Racing Ducati, Toprak Razgatlioglu once again in 2nd, and Alvaro Batista once again for, I think this makes it the 25th time this season, Alvaro Batista on the top step of the podium on that Aruba IT Racing Ducati. It's getting pretty close. I'm going to run through your standings real quick. And if you've been listening to the podcast, following my coverage of World Superbike, it would seem like Alvaro Bautista is running away with this championship. He's really not. It's much closer than you would think. So Alvaro Bautista does lead on that Aruba IT Ducati with 504 points. Toprak Razgatlioglu for the factory Yamaha backed effort in second with 457 points. He's only behind by, what is that, 49 points? No, 47 points. That's it. That's a weekend. Alvaro has a bad weekend and Toprak is leading the championship.
It's so weird.
Let me find your calendar real quick, and because we have 2 rounds left. We have the Pirelli Portuguese round, October 1st. That's this coming weekend. And the Spanish round, the final round, is October 27th through 29th at Circuit de Jerez. That's going to do it for our world. Oh, it is. Oh, I get that wrong every time. I'm sorry. I suck. I know. I don't even follow motorsport. 1 second. Let me pull up MotoAmerica, because MotoAmerica is actually very important this weekend because it was the final round of the season. And we did crown a champion, but we will get to that in a minute. I'm going to talk about race 1. I'm going to go through your results, and there's only 17 people, so I can go through the full results here. You did have some DNFs in race 1 in Alex Arango, Gabriel De Silva, Brandon Posh, and Ashton Yates all DNF'd. Max Flinders was your final finisher in 14th. Bobby Fong in 13th. Danilo Lewis in 12th. Richie Escalante was in 11th. Stefano Mesa was in 10th. Nolan Lamkin in 9th. Hayden Gillilam was in 8th. Benjamin Smith in 7th. Matthew Schultz 6th. Josh Herron 5th, PJ Jacobson in 4th, Corey Alexander 3rd, JD Beach 2nd, and Jake Gagne in 1st. Moving on to race 2, there's only 2 races in MotoAmerica. Not all motorcycle racing is the same. I don't know why, it's very annoying. Every single major series is set up differently. 2 races here, 3 races in World Superbike, and a sprint race and a main race in MotoGP. I don't know why it's all different. It's very annoying to keep up with. Anyway, race 2, we had, 6 DNFs in Hayden Gillilam, Benjamin Smith, Stefano Mesa, Josh Herron sadly down.
Just get better. Finish a race.
Josh Herron was DNF'd in the final race of the season, sadly. Matthew Schultz DNF'd, and Alex Arango also DNF'd. So you only had 12 finishers in race 2. And those were Nolan Lamkin, Gabriel De Silva, Max Flinders, Ashton Yates, Bobby Fong, Danilo Lewis, Richie Escalante, Brandon Posh, Jake Gagne finished 4th off the podium. Corey Alexander was in 3rd, PJ Jacobson 2nd, and JD Beach 1st. However, despite the fact he was off the podium, Jake Gagne had one heck of a season, winning his 3rd MotoAmerica Medallia Superbike Championship in a row. Jake Gagne finished 1st with 420 points, and 148 points behind him was Josh Herron in 2nd.
420, nice.
Yeah, I actually thought that was quite funny. So well done to Jake Gagne. He is an unstoppable force. The dude's
that's because we're children.
That's because we're children, but also something to note about Jake Gagne, the dude's not super young. Like, he's 30. Which isn't old for motorcycle racing, because Rossi was 42 when he left or something. But I'm just saying, not everyone's Rossi, not everyone's Fernando Alonso. 30's kind of getting up there to be winning 3 championships in a row.
He's a late bloomer.
He is. So well done to Jake Gagne in 1st. Josh Herron in 2nd. A fantastic effort on that Ducati. PJ Jacobson 3rd. Matthew Schultz 4th. Richie Escalante 5th. And Cameron Beaubier 6th. That's the one who I really wanted to mention, because Cameron Beaubier and Jake Gagne were teammates for the longest time. Cameron Beaubier went on a streak of winning championships, and then he left to go race Moto 2 or World Superbike. Maybe both. He left to go race in the bigger leagues. And when he left, Jake Gagne, his teammate, started winning stuff. Cameron Beaubier came back, but for BMW, and he is not winning as much stuff. But that's it. We are done with MotoAmerica for 2023. Sadly, it is a shorter season than World Superbike or MotoGP, but there's less funding and it's less of a following. But equally as fantastic racing. I was really rooting for Josh Herron. He's just a super entertaining guy. He seems like a super fun guy. Yeah, until next time, MotoAmerica. Nick, Patty, I guess all we have left is MotoGP and Formula One. All right, in that case, I am going to go over some MotoGP bits. If you heard our previous Motorsport episode, that'd be episode 77, I believe, actually, because we did do 2 Motorsport episodes in a row. But I'm going to go through your results. Actually, before I do that, the first Indian GP, success. So this was a new circuit for MotoGP. There's been some other smaller, lower level motorcycle racing here before. Formula One raced here back in 2011 through 2013. But it was a disaster getting everyone to this track. There was a ton of issues with visas, people getting on planes in times. Marc Marquez almost didn't make it. A bunch of the teams almost didn't make it. So it was kind of a disaster. So thankfully everyone made it. There was concern of the track being homologated in time. I think it got homologated by the FIM on Thursday before the race, which is a bit close. I don't know what they would have done if it didn't get homologated. Like they would have been
on
like,
the streets. Screw them.
They would have been like, "Hey, everyone, sorry, I know you all bought tickets, and I know the teams all flew down here, but we can't race. It's not homologated." But thankfully, it did. And despite the extremely hot temperatures, they actually had to shorten the length of the race by 3 laps before the race even started. They made that decision on Friday to shorten the race because all the riders were like, "Hey, this is ridiculous." I think it was like 95 degrees there, but with 90% humidity. It was terrible weather. All the riders said it was horrible. We'll get to our podium finishers later, but apparently when they got into Parc Ferme, your race winner actually like collapsed, and they had to like bring in the team doctor, and like it was bad. It was hot. So I would not be surprised if next year the race got shortened from 24 to 21. I would not be surprised if next year we see 19 or 20 laps for this race. The track looked fantastic. It looked awesome. The riders said that it was a super technical, challenging track. They said they all liked it. And the good thing about this, being that this was the first time on the track for any of these riders, no riders on the grid, even old man Marc Marquez had never been to this track before. It really allowed for an even playing field and really allowed the talent of riders to show through instead of just, I'm on a Ducati, therefore I'm going to win. It really showed who had talent and who didn't. So it was a super fun race to watch. I'm going to run through your race results. Yeah. We did have some DNFs. Oh, wait, no. I need to go through the sprint race, don't I? I forgot to get a thing. 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm falling behind. Brief intermission. Do you
need me to fill up some time?
Nope. I got it right here.
That's a shame.
Okay. We had several DNFs. Paul Espargaro, Stefan Bradl, Luca Marini, Joan Mir, Joan Zarco, and Aleix Espargaro did not finish the sprint race. So, sprint race, huge drama going into turn 1 of lap 1. Luca Marini goes into the back of his teammate, who was third in the championship, Marco Bezzecchi. Marco Bezzecchi somehow stays upright, finishes the race. However, he lost several spots because he got hit by a motorcycle. Luca Marini did go down. Luca Marini suffered a broken collarbone. He did not race in the main race, obviously, and he will most likely be out for the next round or 2, or maybe even 3, depending on the healing process of that. Apparently, he had a successful surgery, so best of luck to Luca Marini. I'm assuming Valentino was thrilled about that. Going through your race finishers, future Ducati rider Franco Morbidelli in 15th, Michel Pirro in 14th, Taka Nakagami down in 13th, some reason still has a seat, Miguel Oliveira in 12th, Augusto Fernandez 11th, Fabio Di Giannantonio finished 10th, Raul Fernandez in 9th, Maverick Vinales 8th, Jack Miller 7th, Fabio Quartararo in 6th, Marco Bezzecchi 5th, Brad Binder 4th, on the podium, Marc Marquez in 3rd, Pecco Bagnaia in 2nd, and Jorge Martin 1st. I know people are going to hate me for saying this. It's nice to see Mark back on the podium. I get a bunch of people don't like him because he won like a bajillion championships. Like but me. I'm just saying, that'd be Nick. I'm just saying, though, it's nice to see an old guy still do. It's good to know that he's not washed and he's just on a bad bike. That's what I liked to see. I like to see that when you put everyone on an even playing field, no one's been to this track before, none of the teams have data, all we can do is predict what it's going to be like, and we are going to rely on rider talent to get us there. And Marc Marquez delivered. He did fantastic, finished third, really showed that he is an incredibly skilled rider. And actually, before we move on, there's some heavy rumors going around right now. So this weekend, we have the Japan Grand Prix, the Japanese Grand Prix for for MotoGP, sorry. And it is heavily rumored that Marc Marquez is going to announce what he's doing next year. So he said he's going to pick from one of three options. He didn't tell us what those were, so everyone just started guessing. One of them obviously being staying at Repsol Honda, where he's been for his entire MotoGP career. An incredibly successful MotoGP career, the second most successful, in fact. We know another option is leave. That'd be another option. He's getting old. Leave. That's an option. And I tied in with leave, pull a Valentino Rossi, and buy a team. That's what I put in there as well. Leave, pull Rossi, buy a team, have MM93 Racing, which doesn't roll off the tongue as well as VR46, but it never has. But go start Marc Marquez Racing or something. Own a team, become rich, drink espressos with Valentino, live on your life.
Cool.
Option 3. It sounds pretty nice, don't it?
Yeah.
Option 3, which is heavily rumored, Marc Marquez to Gresini Ducati.
Which I would hate.
And supposedly, I have read several places, none of them incredibly reliable, but several places that the deal is already done. And Marc Marquez has already signed a deal with Gresini Ducati to race for them in 2024. Now, this means multiple things. Number one, Honda's screwed, if that's the case. Honda has... I mean, they have Joan Mir, and Joan Mir did fantastic this weekend for a guy who hasn't been doing incredibly well. But Marc Marquez is their golden boy, so that could be a major issue for Honda. Another thing that this means is this could be the end of Marc Marquez's career. He could go to the Ducati. He could be washed. This could also mean that everyone on the grid should be worried, and that Marc Marquez might actually have a good bike next year. Because the Honda has never been a good bike. It's always been notoriously difficult to ride, and Marc Marquez is just outriding that bad machinery.
Right.
Everyone else who's been on the Honda has said, it's not a good bike. I don't know how he wins races, or even finishes races. If you look at the results, everyone else on the Hondas, aside from Joan Mir this weekend, has been finishing at the back of the grid.
Right.
Except for Marc Marquez. For some reason, he can make that bike work. So... if he goes to Gresini Ducati, he will most likely get a GP23, which is this year's factory bike, which will be, last year's bike next year, whatever that means. If he gets a GP23, which we know is a fantastic bike, will he do well, or is it too good of a bike and he doesn't know how to ride a well-set-up motorcycle?
Probably not.
And he'll do poorly. He might override the bike. He might be used to having to ride so aggressively to get the bike to do what he wants that he'll end up just throwing the bike around and crashing a ton, which, as we know, Marc is fragile, and that could be the end of Marquez's career. So. Right. So I'm very excited about this. I have no idea what's going to happen. So rumors, but more to come on that. But Marc Marquez, P3, Pecco Bagnaia, P2, Jorge Martin in first. However, your main race results, we had several more DNFs. Augusto Fernandez, Alicia Spargaro, Pecco Bagnaia, and Fabio Di Giannantonio. Yes, your championship leader, Pecco Bagnaia, binned it all on his lonesome with 13 laps into the 21-lap race. Binned it all on his lonesome and threw away another valuable points haul to further his championship lead. However, your finishing results. Michel Pirro in 16th, Stefan Bradl 15th, Jack Miller 14th, Paulo Spargaro in 13th, Miguel Oliveira 12th, Taka Nakagami 11th, Raul Fernandez 10th, Marc Marquez down in 9th. Marc Marquez was in 3rd, crashed. I did say that he does do that a lot. Crashed, was last, got back on his bike, finished 9th. Well done, Marc Marquez. He still knows how to do that. Marc Marquez 9th, Maverick Vinales 8th, Franco Morbidelli in 7th, substantially better result than his sprint race. Johan Zarco in 6th, Joan Mir in 5th. Well done to Joan Mir on that Repsol Honda. His best result ever. This was his first time going directly into Q2 on the Repsol Honda. So congratulations to Joan Mir for figuring something out on that Honda. Well done. Brad Binder in 4th, narrowly missing out on the podium. Fabio Quartararo, your 2021 MotoGP champion, back on the podium in P3, Jorge Martin in 2nd, and Marco Bezzecchi, who absolutely ran away with the race. The pole sitter for the weekend got a fantastic start and essentially ran away with the race, making 0 mistakes. Now, what this could mean is we have a very spicy championship battle. So Pecco Bagnaia still leads the championship with 292 points. However, just behind him is Jorge Martin with 279 points. Just 13 points separates first and second in the championship. Marco Bezzecchi is not far behind with 248 points. He is less than 50 points away from leading the championship. Pecco Bagnaia has had a couple bad races. He's thrown away some wins, throwing away points. Jorge Martin could have a couple of those, and Marco Bezzecchi could easily, take over the lead of this championship, if
I
not
hope Bezzecchi
second.
wins. Bezzecchi is...
I'm rooting for Bezzecchi. However, I like all three of these riders. I'm a big fan of all of them. However, this could be very exciting because for the first time in the four-stroke era of MotoGP, a satellite team could win the championship. It's never happened.
That's true.
Mainly because most of it was won by Valentino Rossi and Marc Marquez. That's the majority of it. Most of it was those guys. But we've never had a satellite team win the championship, and we currently have two satellite teams in second and third. So this could be very spicy. I'm rooting for all of them every weekend. I hope they're all doing well, but Pecco just seems to be either destroying the entire field and pulling a Max Verstappen and leading the race by 5 minutes, or he's on the ground. He for some reason, Pecco Bagnaia still rides this way. I don't get it. And they're all self-airs. His big wreck two weekends ago, that was all him. He didn't get hit by anybody. I mean, eventually, but that didn't cause the wreck. It appears that anytime Pecco Bagnaia crashes, it is Pecco Bagnaia who's crashing the bike. Not getting hit, not getting pushed off the track, nothing like that. It's just him. And Jorge Martin seems to be the same way. It just seems to be one of those things of they're just pushing the bikes so far to try and lead the race or catch up if they had a bad qualifying or something, and they end up just throwing away points. So I think it's going to be one of those things is as we get towards the end of the season, we're going to start to see two very different riders from Pecco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin. I think they're both going to calm down a bit and just try to limit risk and limit mistakes. Whereas I think we might even see a more aggressive Marco Bezzecchi and try to capitalize on those two kind of taking it easy, and he might try to take some wins and close up that gap. He might not be able to make up, 45 points, to Pecco, but he might be able to make up 30 points to Jorge Martin. He might be able to get second, which would be an outstanding ride for Marco Bezzecchi. Marco Bezzecchi, who did confirm that, I probably already mentioned this, did confirm he's staying with VR46 Ducati for next year, which is fantastic. I'm assuming Valentino Rossi threw him a very large sum of money to do that because I'm assuming that any one of the higher up factory teams would have given him a seat. He's been doing fantastic. It's kind of rare to see that much talent on a satellite bike. You don't see that too often. That's going to do it for MotoGP. Let me see if I can pull up a calendar real quick. Where are we? What month is it, Nick? It's September.
Yeah, about to be October.
About to be October. We have, like I said, Grand Prix of Japan coming up this weekend, and then Indonesia after that, October 15th. Nick Patty, Formula One. Yeah. Are you familiar with it? Okay.
I have heard of it.
You have indeed heard of it. Okay. I'm assuming you watched the race.
Yes.
Okay. Not necessarily good race.
No.
However, incredibly chaotic weekend. There were a lot of crashes. There were a lot of people hitting each other. There was a weird thing that happened with a Red Bull that is going to get banned now. You're a Formula One hater. We get it. I understand. Fernando didn't win.
No.
Sucky weekend. Formula One sucks.
I wasn't going to say anything, but you just opened the floodgates, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't like what comes out of my mouth, blame Ben. So the whole thing with Checo. Jolyon going, oh, this is so stupid. They just circumvented the penalty. Therefore, blah, blah, blah. They need to make it less obvious, blah, blah. It's like, hey, I got one. It used to be, and I guess it still is, but everybody is so freaking stupid and European. Oh, hey. And call me crazy. Oh, no, something's wrong with the car? Well, you can retire the car. You can bring it into the garage and then work on it and then send it back out. And that's basically what they did with Checo's car. Granted, they didn't fix it, but once they figured out they had the penalty, they're like, all right, well, I guess we'll go send it back out.
Yeah.
If the car is able to finish the race, or even if it DNFs, but it's able to serve the penalty on track, then it serves the penalty on track. How
Right.
if you have such a complaint about, oh, well, they've circumvented the penalty. All right, you get a 5-second penalty, which at the end of the day doesn't really mean much, but you still get penalty points on the license. So you're
Right.
still, there's a permanent effect to it. And if people are like, oh, well, they avoided the 5-second license. They're out of the goddamn race. Like, whatever
Right.
a 5-second penalty was going to do to hurt Checo's race has been done, but 10 times worse by him being out. So I don't know why people are like, oh, well, that's unfair because he's not actually getting penalized. He didn't finish the damn race. So
Right. Well,
his
I
race
think
was
the main thing was the 5-second penalty was going to carry over to next weekend.
Well, right, but even then, that shouldn't happen. If you got a penalty during a race, it needs to be served during the race. And normally, if a 5-second penalty isn't served during the race, it's served in the general classification after the race, but it's still
After the race
order. So
Right.
this whole, oh, well, you did a naughty in the race before, but it only takes into effect the next race, is bogus. And before the people that live in their basement and do F1 stats come at me and say, well, actually, well, you can be suspended for a race after an infringement the previous race. Yes, the infringement is designed for when you've committed so many fuck-ups that they're like, you know what? It's not safe to have you on the track. You're just a threat to safety. That's why there is a one-race penalty. It's not because, oh, you did something in the last race. There's a repeated behavior that you've done so much stupid crap on track. Timeout. You're done for.
Right.
So
Right.
that logic doesn't hold water. I think it's the stupid new fans. And if you're listening, make sure to subscribe. But that they come into our sport not understanding motorsports, whine, moan, and complain about how it's run, and then watch, if they change it, they won't even be fans in 2 months. They won't even be fans in 6 months or a year. They're going to be gone. They're going to be on to the next fad, and it's going to be like, great, you came in, you ruined our sport, and then you left. Just leave it alone, please.
So I didn't see anything. I personally, I didn't see anything, but I try to stay off the internet where other people are on it. I didn't see anything about people complaining about them serving the penalty then. I saw people, like, mainly it's just people didn't know that you could do that, was mainly what it was.
The complaints I was seeing is, oh, once again, Red Bull has friends at the FIA that allow them to go do this and game the system. It's like, guys.
It wasn't a rule. They were allowed to do it. It was completely legal.
Call me crazy, but a 25-year-old Brit with half his teeth still intact maybe doesn't know what the F1 race engineers know about the FIA rules. Thoughts?
Guess we'll never know. But
like,
it was funny though, because when I was watching the race live, you know, like, even the commentators were like, "Oh, they're sending the car. Can you send the car back out? I didn't know that you could do. Apparently, you can send the. I didn't know that. I assumed that once the car went into the garage, and then you got out of the car. It's once you're out of the car can't leave again. Car's done.
So
because if you're on track and the car crashes, and you get out of the car, your race is done. You know,
well,
if you go into a tire barrier, but then you can back it out and then make it back around into the pits and they can replace the front wing or whatever, that's fine.
Similar to IMSA, where if you take it into the garage, and now with these cars having so much battery and hybrid stuff, theoretically it wouldn't be safe for anybody to work on that vehicle unless Checo's out of the car. Because it's not safe in the car. Anyway, so
I just assumed they had a rule that once the car goes into the garage, it can't go back out, because the races are so close now that it's like, why would you even bother? You'll be laps down, which he was.
That's the thing, is just because...
I just assumed...
So one, I thought that, but not because it was ever said. I thought that just because, well, no F1 driver ever goes out again once they're into the garage.
Right, like, it's just common sense-wise, it doesn't make sense.
Secondly, it's the, like, well, what would you gain from it? And Jolene's like, it's so stupid. They're just spending time, wasting the time on the components and blah, blah, blah. I'm sitting here and I'm like, hey, in a season where everyone is so pressed for test time and testing is shorter and there's less time on track. Maybe, and with sprint weekends, you don't even get as much practice as you normally have in a season. Maybe,
Right.
and I'm not saying Red Bull wanted this, but it should be open for
Right.
teams as long as you're respecting blue flags.
Yeah.
You can run whenever, however many laps down, because it's your prerogative. You pay for each race weekend. You pay to be in the sport. You pay to build the car, and then to not run it if it's capable of being run, to me, doesn't make sense.
No, I'm totally in favor. Like, I'm totally fine with it. I just assumed that there was a rule that once the car goes into the garage, no, that's just what I assumed.
See, because here's the thing. So let's go to Hungaroring 2021, where there's a big pileup in the first corner, right? Let's say you're one of the teams that suffered a lot of damage, but you could get the car back around to the pit lane. It incentivizes them pulling into the garage, fixing it as quick as they can. With how many cars were taken out in the first corner, you could be fighting for points. You might be a lap down, and granted, a lap is a lot. But if you were to throw in extreme weather, or if, let's say, it's a Red Bull, and the cars in front of you were Williams and Haas's that weren't taken out.
Right.
There's the potential for points. Granted.
Or there's a safety car and lapped cars are allowed to go back around.
Yeah, and on top of that, I get it super rare. But again, it's the team's prerogative, and if there's points on the line, nobody expected Esteban Ocon to win Hungaroring. So I don't want anybody to similarly sit there and be like, well, it would never happen. You don't know that. Look at Russia 2021. Lando Norris is leading the race and it's pouring down rain.
Yep.
Let's say you're a team that's a lap down and you pit a lap early for intermediates. You would have made a lap back. So there are situations in which being a lap down is not the end of the race in Formula One. And granted, we have not seen teams where if they get a lap down, they just instantly retire the car. But that's more likely than an F1 team just staying out. And I think that reflects something on kind of the state of the sport, that they're like, oh, well, we're just going to give up. Oh, no.
Yeah, we'll just retire the car,
But at that point, Williams and Haas might as well just leave. Like, just give up.
Right. Yeah. Well, actually, Williams and Haas would probably just stay because everyone else is just going to retire. They'll just get points. I think the part that surprised me was it was a combination of multiple things. Number one, I didn't know that you could go back out once the car went into the garage, and especially after the driver left. Like, he was like out of the car, Hans device, helmet off. Like, we saw a video of him. He was just walking around, like, talking to whoever. I assumed that it's like, at that point, it's like, okay, the car's out, you're done, right? Because like IMSA or WEC, it makes sense because it's like, oh, there's hours and literally, maybe you're a lap down, but the cars in front of you could break.
A standard IMSA race is 2 hours 40 minutes. That's what an F1 race can be. Theoretically, every race could be a 2 hours and 40 minute race.
True. That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Max is 3, right?
Yeah, max is 3.
So an average F1 race is about 2 hours. So you're within a 35, 40 minute window of it being the same length as an IMSA race. Now, granted, I know that F1 is different. But again, for the fans that only watch F1, they're like, huh? He got out of the car. How could he get... It's like, no, this is... Actually, F1's the only sport where that's kind of the norm, is where somebody will get out of the car and not get back in. However, the thing that confused me the most was purely, what does retiring mean? If retiring is synonymous with did not finish, then I don't think you should be able to be classified as a did not finish and then be able to go back out. However, if a retirement is not inherently or exclusively a do not finish result, basically do not forfeit the race, then I think you should be, like, if retiring the car just means, okay, the car is no longer competing in the race, okay, that's fine. You go laps down, whatever, and then you're like, okay, we're going to unretire the car, meaning we're now going to compete. Okay, fine, roll it out. But I'm assuming, considering it was actually allowed, that retiring does not mean you're out of the race. It just means that you're...
So that's one of the things that confused me, was, number one, the call on the radio says, Checo, retire the car.
Right.
Which I assumed was, the car's done, your race is done, we're going to retire.
Is retiring the car, what does that communicate to Checo? Bring it into the pits, we're going to bring it into the garage.
Right.
But, you would think if it's just, we're DNFing, and there was something so wrong with the car that he couldn't bring it around.
Right.
Meaning, to retire the car is a proactive choice, as opposed to, the car, you pull it to one of the orange breaks in the wall,
Mhm.
and the car's done. It's broken. It can't finish.
Right.
It's a did not finish or a do not finish. But if they say retire the car, really what it's communicating is bring it into the pits. We're going to bring it into the garage.
Right.
Which in and of itself, again, doesn't mean that you couldn't go back out. I think this comes down to European speak. What does retire the car in European mean?
So, because that's and the reason I read like every article on this scenario just because it's so weird. And it's one of those, for starters, this entire thing only happened because there was simply a rule in the FIA rulebook that didn't say you can't. That's basically all it was there isn't a rule that says if you retire your car and you get a 5-second time penalty, which note came after the retirement of the car. If you retire your car and then get a 5-second time penalty or a time penalty of any matter, you can unretire the car and go back out, serve your time penalty, and come back in.
Here's the other issue. Oh, go ahead.
Here's one of the reasons that I had an issue with it, okay? Number one, the call is retire the car. Retiring means you stop working. That's what retirement is for people, okay? The other thing is the timing board on the side of the screen. Now, I note that the timing board is not the end-all, be-all, and the hard law.
It's not FIA, it's the broadcast.
It's not FIA, it's the broadcast, but it does say Perez out. Out should mean out of the race. You're out of the race. You're done.
That, I agree. But
it's not the FIA, it's the broadcast. So that is not the end-all, be-all. I understand, Internet. Don't yell at me for that one. But what I think we should...
I can't find you, remember?
I know. But I think what is going to happen in the future, for starters, there is definitely going to be a rule before the race next weekend that does say if you retire the car and then receive a time penalty, you are not allowed to go back out to serve the time penalty if you retire the car again. If you go back out and finish the race, absolutely, it can be added on to the 5 seconds at the end. But if you go back out, do one lap, serve your time penalty, go back out, and then retire the car again, it's going to be something like that. But I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a vernacular change between the chief engineers and the drivers. I think there's going to be a change of wording, and it's not going to be necessarily retire the car. It's going to be like hard box, like something like that. Like they're going to change the vernacular to where they don't say retire. Because what happens in an endurance race is if they bring a car into the garage, it just says, once again, I know it's just the timing board, it's the broadcast, not, the FIA or whatever. But it just says in pit. It doesn't say retired. You could be in the garage for 3 hours of a 24-hour race and it will still say in pit, not retired.
Well, so for instance,
because then you have to make the call, okay, we're retiring the car, our race is done. And in endurance racing, retire the car means your race is done. So I think what's going to happen is there's just going to be a change that retire the car means done. I think there's going to be something that happens in between, and it's like what's going to happen is like Checo or whoever. If someone has a race where it's like we have so much damage, we've had to pit the car, we've done a 5-stop race, we're halfway through, and it's like, all right, box the car, and then whenever they box it and they put it in, they won't say retired, they'll just be in the pits, and then when there's like a final lap, 2 laps to go, then they'll be like, all right, we're retiring the car. I think that's what's going to happen.
I think, to your point, it will be, box, and then when the driver pulls in and there's not a pit crew waiting with tires, and they're just waiting there with the little dollies,
right?
The driver will know, okay, we're putting it in the garage. I think that'll be it. But
right.
On top of that, I think this whole debacle not only is caused by the FIA because of their rules, but you shouldn't be able to receive a time penalty, when you're out of the race. So
that is another thing.
Checo should have received penalty points, but knowing that he's retired, if the FIA was intending a retirement to be final, then there shouldn't be a time penalty.
And I think that's something that's going to happen in the future.
If the FIA gives out a time penalty after a car retires, I think they're implying that there's an opportunity to serve that still in the race.
Right.
Granted, the FIA after the fact was like, oh, no, we meant that was going to be served at the next race. We did not think it was going to.
Right.
Again, you can't do that. That's not how it works. Yeah.
And okay, so something else. This could be a whole nother podcast, by the way. But
let's do it.
Another thing, I think that all motorsports, 4-wheeled, 2-wheeled, sprint race, endurance, 24-hour race, whatever, I think penalties should be harsher, just in general. I think throwing a 5-second time penalty at everything is a bit too soft.
I disagree.
Okay. Well, and to be fair, that's not a broad statement. That's just most of the time, it doesn't really affect a lot of drivers. It can.
In Singapore.
It can absolutely, like that, throw off a driver's race and they can drop 6 positions or whatever. It can be horrible. I do think, however, they need to have a bit more but if statements under penalty clauses.
I got one better.
And then if, for say, a car retires and something was under investigation, and then it is found that that driver does indeed need to receive a penalty, instead of getting a 5-second time penalty, which they can't serve, they should just get a 1-place grid drop for the next race.
I got one better.
Yes.
I think there needs to be fewer penalties, but more severe penalties. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean give more severe penalties more often. I mean, allow for more rubbins racing, and then
more racing incidents.
I would only penalize something if there is actual malice. I don't care if it's an unsafe release.
Right.
If you intentionally,
nudge a car,
big deal. Oh,
if there's 2 cars running next to each other, and then one of them ends up getting pushed, 2 wheels off into the grass or whatever, no one crashes. Everyone's still racing. Racing incident.
Even if someone were to crash, do we think it was intentional? We have the data and the telemetry, so we can compare. Right. We can compare the unwind of the steering angle compared to all of their other laps. And if they were more aggressive on the unwind, that shows intent. So that, number one. Number two, on top of that, if there's not malice, sorry, let me rewind. On top of that, if there's a pattern of behavior, so let's say it's someone throws a block. Oh, that's dangerous driving, man. Okay, it's allowed. Oh, not only did they block, but in several corners on one lap, and then on a second lap, and then on a third lap, they're consistently throwing cheap blocks. They're clearly slower. They're causing an environment in which there could be an accident. Now we're going to penalize them. But the penalty is severe, like 10, 15 seconds, or you have to yield the position. Like, you're just not that fast. Sorry, and you're not keeping the position because of racecraft. You're just being an ass. Give up the position. That type of stuff.
What?
I think that would be a lot more beneficial than like, you dropped 2 off or you pushed a guy wide. Don't do that. And then it's, you did it one more time, but it wasn't worse. It didn't cause an accident. Shucks, 5 seconds. One race that happens to drop you back 4 places and one race that doesn't affect you at all because of the layout of the track. That's inconsistent. It should just be like, you're an asshole, race ban, penalty points, or position yield. Like, give up the position. You have lost. Give it up.
Okay, I agree with that. I retract my previous statement. Yes, I agree. We should have less penalties because some of them are dumb and unnecessary. And it should just be much more direct. Like, so for starters, Checo's whole thing was he passed someone going into the pits right when they called the virtual safety car or whatever. He goes into the pits, gets a new front wing because he tried to murder someone, and then goes back out and then tries to give up a place but didn't give up enough places or something like that. The FIA should just tell them, they were like, hey, just heads up, tell Checo he has to give up one more position.
It's like, hey.
Just that. Heads up. You did a thing wrong. If you just fix that thing, we don't care anymore.
1,000%. It's so...
Yeah, that would make more sense.
It's so, like, vengeful and retaliatory. It's like, screw you. Take this. Like, causing a collision? Who gives a shit about a collision? It should be causes an accident. Like, did you cause a wreck? No? Okay, then you're probably fine.
Because that's causing a collision is classified as like trading paint, basically, like rubbins racing. But if you late brake into a turn and then yeet Kevin Magnussen, causing an accident.
And on top of that, yes, Formula One cars are more delicate.
True.
But
they're the most durable they've ever been.
Well, on top of that, that just comes with the territory. So, like, if you're like, but all the cars break, then go watch sports cars because they don't.
NASCARs are durable. Anyway, we're going to ramble on too long. We haven't even covered the results yet of this. So I'm going to go through...
If you're listening to this podcast, you've already seen the results. We can just do...
I'm going to go through the results real quick for those of you who haven't. DNS, Valtteri Bottas, Sergio Perez, Lance Stroll, Logan Sargent, and Alexander Albon all DNF'd. A double DNF for the Williams. The two Haas having a horrible weekend. Kevin Magnussen, 15th. Nico Hulkenberg, 14th. Zhou Guanyu, 13th. Yuki Tsunoda, 12th. Liam Lawson, 11th. Get that boy a seat. Pierre Gasly in 10th. Esteban Ocon, 9th. Fernando Alonso in 8th. George Russell, 7th. Carlos Sainz, 6th. Lewis Hamilton, 5th. Charles Leclerc in 4th. Oscar Piastri, his first podium as an F1 driver. Congratulations to Oscar Piastri. First driver to do it since Lance Stroll in 2017.
With Williams in Azerbaijan.
Yes, Lando Norris in 2nd. A double podium for McLaren, I should say. Sorry. And Max Verstappen, once again, 20 seconds ahead in P1. And congratulations to Red Bull. And by Red Bull, I mean Red Bull and Max Verstappen on your Constructors' Championship for 2023. That might be a bit harsh to Sergio, but it's genuinely true. Get that boy out of there. Liam Lawson gets the seat. Anyway, that's going to do it. That's going to do it from us here for episode 78 of the Clutch Dump. That was a chaotic episode.
Alonso.
It was a quite chaotic episode, like I said.
I love it.
It was quite good. I rather enjoyed it. There was some nice banter and some nice conversation there, especially towards the end. But like Nick said at the top of the show, make sure you go follow us on social media at The Clutch Dump. Make sure you follow us on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to us on, whether it's Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Pandora, Stitcher, whatever podcasts are on, we're on there. Go find us, give us a follow, leave a rating, leave a review. It helps us a ton. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share the video. Comment down below what you think about penalties, SRO, what you thought of this year's MotoAmerica season, everything. Comment about everything. And of course, let us know if there's a motorsport that you love, that you want us to cover so we can expand our portfolio going forward. But until then, that's going to do it. We will see you next time for episode 79.